Okay. It is 10:03, so let's get this meeting started, shall we? Again, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for attending. I know there was a few that were not going to be able to, but I've talked with one of those people and got their thoughts. Grant award piece. So we'll call the meeting to order. And Marnie, if you could help me work through the agenda, that would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
You bet.
So what is next on the agenda?
We will start with roll call. I was trying to pull up an agenda to share.
Thank you. It's just been a wild and crazy time. I swear to God.
Here. Well, I will call the agenda or the roll call and then
Perfect. Thank you so much. That would be good.
the agenda. Jerry Pettit.
I am here.
Jill Bolt. Vicki Dalton. Rick Gregory. Heather Kinsley. Peggy.
Peggy Sempromosnik.
Thank you. Thank you. Never actually heard that pronounced out loud. Jody.
Here.
Sheila Gall.
Here.
Jennifer Wallace. Marianne Nichols is absent. Victoria Lincoln. Sherry Nelson is absent. Steve Excel.
Here.
Jerry, should we take the opportunity to invite staff to go ahead and introduce themselves?
That would be very awesome. Thank you. Who just joined us?
I'm Rachel Wilson. I'm with the records management team in the Southwest branch, state branch.
Rachel?
Jamie Gansel, Senior Records Consultant, Olympia Branch.
Hey, Jamie?
June Timmons, Digital Archives Application Development Team.
Good morning, June.
Dave Beals, Acquisitions Archivist.
Dave?
Scott Sackett, Principal Records Consultant. We're in Ellensburg.
Hi, Scott.
Molly Rooney, Records Consultant, Bellingham.
Hi, Molly.
Emily Veneman, Records Consultant in Bellevue.
Good morning.
Megan
Russell
Weiss.
Wood.
Oh, go ahead, Russ.
Okay. Russell Wood, State Records Manager.
Megan Weiss, Acquisition Archivist.
Morning.
Charles Hilton, Records Consultant, Olympia.
Good. I'm so absolutely fantastic that we've got everyone that has joined from the different regions. I see Patrick just joined us.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Jerry, Victoria Lincoln, Ports is
Hi. She made it. Yay. Good
I
morning.
did.
It is so wonderful to have you back on this organization. For everyone's information, Victoria used to be with the Association of Washington Cities and was involved in this committee quite a number of years back for a period of time. And I have missed her on this.
Oh, thank you.
All righty, we've got roll call, introduction of staff. So we have approval of the August 12th to 2021 minutes Do we have a motion for approval?
So move.
Second? Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion regarding the motion to approve the August 12th, 2021 minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Option of today's agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
This is Jody. I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Jody. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda for September 29, 2021? That is today. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so let's go to Steve and any announcements from the state archivist. Thank you, Steve, and welcome.
Thank you. I'll be very, very brief. Despite the news constantly shifting on COVID, nobody quite knows what's happening next week or next month. All of our facilities are still open to researchers by appointment, wearing a mask, doing all the protocols. We are also picking up records from local governments, planning the pickups ahead of time so everybody can do all the proper protocols in terms of the facility that we're visiting. We have hired someone to staff the new Recording Standards Commission, and his name is Bruce Goodell. He previously worked for the Walla Walla County Auditor. He worked for the Walla Walla County Health Department, and he worked for the Columbia County Public Transportation District. He has been a records officer, and he does have experience in an auditor's office. So he brings some things to the table in terms of staffing the new Recording Standards Commission. And I want to give a big shout out to Vicki. I don't think she's on the call today or on the meeting, but she was on the interview panel for all the candidates that we did interview. So that's pretty much it. Things are relatively as normal can be during these crazy times.
Thank you, Steve. I'm excited as one of the auditors to see the Recording Standards Commission finally being put together. The Recording Standards Commission is something that the county auditors have wanted for quite a number of years. What that will be is the group that will work through establishing WAC for recommendation to the Secretary of State's office for adoption to finally get to a place to where we have a set of rules to follow to ensure consistency regarding recording of documents throughout the state within county auditors' offices. Thankfully, we are there.
Yes. This has been talked about for what, 20 years, Jerry?
At least.
Longer.
I remember, let's see, I started on February 1st of 2005. And I remember a conversation almost a day after or even during the period of time through my first year coming from title companies, and a couple of them here in town that I knew the general managers and owners of those title companies, and that was their wish. One of their wishes is that we get to a place of consistent recording standards throughout the state. When it comes to county auditor's office, that's really probably the only division that has not had a state agency in place to provide for standards. Unlike licensing, elections, and reporting, financial reporting, it's the only area. So we finally have that. Yes. So thank you so much for that. And we'll keep everyone here posted on how all of that is going to be coming together. So thank you. All right. So we are going to move on to the major piece of what this meeting is for. So I'm going to turn this over to Marnie for the process overview. And just for information, the way that we've done this in the past, as far as addressing what our awards will be, is I'm not interested in going through each one of these awards individually. My request will be for each of you, as you have the opportunity to look through either the applications, the notes from state archives and so forth, to bring those issues up, and then we'll move through that in a relatively quicker fashion, and hopefully to get to a place to relatively quickly adopt a recommendation for approval of grants to the Secretary of State. So, Marnie, I'm going to turn this over to you to go through the process and give us a kind of a direction of how this process has worked and how we work through this. Go for it.
Sure. So I'll just give a short recap to remind you all, since we last met, the process that staff has gone through to review and rank the applications. First of all, we received 91 applications for this year's grants. Among those, we had 41 cities or towns, 17 counties, and 33 special purpose districts. 3/4 of the applicants were from the west side of the state, about 1/4 from the east side. 31 of the applications were for digital imaging grants, 34 for Organize the File Room grants, and 26 applications were for technology tools grants. Staff reviewed and scored the applications based on the criteria that we have posted on our website. Basically, they looked at how well the application demonstrates the problem that the agency is having with responding to public records requests in a timely manner and/or retaining and managing their public records. They looked at how well does the application explain how the project will be carried out and what it will have achieved by the end of the grant period. And they looked at how well does the application demonstrate that the project will fix or lessen the impact of the problem and that its outcome will be sustainable. The fourth criteria that we applied was to recognize agencies that were smaller agencies in keeping with the legislation that created the program. So once the points were tallied for each of the agencies, I ranked the list in order of highest to lowest points and shared that information with you all right after our last meeting for you to review and consider before we came to this meeting today. The spreadsheet that I sent out included comments from the staff reviewers to sort of help illustrate their thinking in assigning the points. If you have questions today, we'll try to address that for you to help you understand how points were assigned. After today, at today's meeting, we hope that you will act to approve a number of applications to be recommended for funding. The recommendations will go to the Secretary of State's office. It'll take us a little bit of time to pull that information together for the Secretary of State. So we're hoping that by mid-October, the Secretary will announce the winners of grants. Then we will take some time to create the grant agreements. That takes a little while. Being realistic, we are hoping that agencies will be able to start their projects with their grant agreements in place right after Thanksgiving, early December. And we're giving them until December of 2022 to complete their work.
So if anyone has questions, I would like it if you would raise your hand. And Marnie and I will try really hard to pay attention to that. So does anyone have any questions regarding the process?
I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger.
Pardon?
Sorry, I was trying to make this screen a little bit bigger for you to see.
Sure, thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So the next step here is, Marnie, I didn't count how many of these that were pulled down.
Right. So when we ranked the applications,
Yes.
sorry, starting with the starting point of having up to $700,000 available for funding this year in this grant cycle, we ranked the top 36 grant applications tallied just under 700,000. So I included a note to that effect in the spreadsheet. So going through row 37, the first 36 applications here in this ranked list could be funded with the funding available for this grant cycle.
Right.
I did make a couple notes on 2 of the applications here where the applicant asked for a little bit more than the maximum amount allowed for those types of grants. So we would just ask when you vote on this, if you do recommend approving those 2 applications, that you note that it's for the lesser accurate amount. So that was City of Camas and Ocean Shores, I believe.
Okay. So let's look at the first 36. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns on any of the first 36 applications at this point? This is going to go really fast, you guys.
Jerry, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Marnie, do you know offhand for everyone above the line how we balance out in terms of, is Eastern Washington adequately represented? Does it balance out geographically?
Let's see here. That's a good question. You get to see my great Excel skills here.
I was gonna say, I looked at it a little bit myself, and it seems like there was what.
Nope, that didn't work.
So I'm seeing, so we're doing region Eastern, is that correct?
Right, so EA and CN would be the east side of the state. I made it so big I can't see here.
2,
Yeah,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that's the eastern part of the state.
Which is about the same proportion as what we've received.
Correct. That would be my sense. Okay. So again, I'll ask the question, does anyone have any comments, concerns, or issues with any of the first 36 applications that we should need to discuss as far as potentially looking at something differently with these applications?
I guess I have a question on the small entity factors and the extra points that small entities got.
Here, go ahead.
Just looking at it, I thought that there actually were a fair number of larger organizations that managed to qualify for grants as well. But I was just curious if other people had any thoughts about whether or not small entities got a little better deal.
I had trouble hearing the
Points.
question.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sure. I was just curious if others had thoughts about those extra points for the small cities, for the small entities. Okay, thanks.
Right. Thank you. So I had a conversation with Vicky yesterday, so I'm sure that Steve would probably chuckle a little bit because Vicky always looks at these things very critically, as do I. And so there are, if you look at the last several ones on the list, starting with the Port of Poulsbo through the Port of Edmonds. So let's go down to those last few. And Vicky's concerns, first of all, no concern with Mason PUD number 3. So that one, not a problem. The Port of Poulsbo and through Pacific County, Port of Poulsbo and Pacific County, the concern there through Pacific County is there seems to maybe be a need for more detail and a little more thorough plan before the project started. And that was something I believe that was noted by the regional archivists in their reviews. Also, same with Shoreline School District and Port of Edmonds, that those seems to be like, particularly those two might need to get some hand holding. So one of her comments was, if we were to approve these, can we approve them through a motion that would provide for the regional archivist or the state archivist to make a decision that if they are willing to have the regional archivist help them get to a better place with a more thorough plan before starting the project to ensure that it actually would be work well, that would be great. And if the archivist believes that, or that there are going to be some significant issues with that, then there would be the authority to set that award aside. Steve, is that something that makes sense that you would be able to accomplish?
Yes, and we did do that in the past where there's maybe a small question mark on the grant, and it was conditioned upon the entity, the grant applicant, having either an on-site visit by an archivist or records manager or a consult, which could be by phone or it could be a Zoom or WebEx meeting, and because we thought they needed a little help. So this seems to be a manageable number. I'll let Russell speak for his team, but this is not a long list that would need either a consult or a site visit.
And the plan to continue what we've been doing last few cycles is that every grant applicant or every grant awardee will be assigned a records consultant to work with them. And you know, my writing instructions to those consultants are that you're part of their project and you want to make sure that they're successful and have the resources they need from the archives to make it work, and to also, you know, make sure it's on track. And if there's anything going, you know, if there's going to be problems coming up, that we can intervene early and not just wait until the end. So that will certainly be part of what they could do with these ones which were ranked lower than the higher ranked ones, to be able to then say, here are some ways you could make this, you know, make sure that this is going to be a successful outcome and a good worthy project.
So thank you. And that's the concern that Vicky has. It's a similar concern that I have. And it makes sense that these applications were scored lower potentially because of those specific issues. So I think what we have is a request for the Port of Poulsbo, the Port of Kingston, the City of Clarkston, Pacific County, and Shoreline School District to specifically have some, maybe a little more, little higher level of assistance in order to develop a little better plan and approach to ensure that those projects are successful. With the assumption that if things just aren't going to be working to get that process off the ground, that the recommendation would be that, you know, we need to pull the funding. But let's hopefully with my confidence in all of the records managers throughout within archives throughout the regions, you know, you guys do a really good job of trying to help these entities get this stuff done because of the need. So thank you. So the last one that is of concern is let me see, is the ESD 112. Vicki and I both have some big question marks beside that one. And the real question is this a project that really qualifies for this funding? So help me understand that.
Which team reviewed that? They might be able to shed some light on it.
Southwest. And one of the issues here is this is, you know, like only a portion of what their overall complete project is. And the question is whether or not these documents are even really something that qualify under archival documents, and whether or not, because a lot of this stuff has to do with requests from state agencies and concerns as to why in the world we would need to support all of this stuff and whether or not it's really archival. So that's the question. So hope maybe you can help understand it.
The comments. I don't have a note here saying who did these reviews.
According to my notes, it was Jeanette and Molly.
Yeah, it was us. I'm just trying to look over my comments here.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Oh.
I'm sure that if we hadn't considered them something that was covered, we would have said that. I'm just trying to see, I think they're talking about drawings.
Would it help to bring up the application?
That would be helpful, I think.
They want to scan their workers' compensation claims, which have a retention of 75 years after claim close, then destroy. So these are long-term records that they want help managing and accessing. So that's why they want to scan them.
Okay.
So they're records with a very long-term retention.
Right. Similarly to, you know, many payroll records that, you know, it's a 75-year retention after the employee is, you know, terminates from the organization. And that's why, you know, you always question whether or not, you know, 75 years, isn't that close to archival?
Getting there.
Right. I mean, when we score these, we're scoring them according to the criteria and the scoring criteria, and it looks like they mostly met the things under the scoring criteria. As far as, you know, worthiness and stuff, I think we normally try to leave that up to you guys to decide.
So
The idea for us, I think, would be that they're very long-term records. So, and usually that is one of the criteria. We kind of question people if they're trying to digitize a bunch of short-term records that they will be able to destroy soon. When you have something like this and you want to get paper out of your way, then having it be long-term is a criteria.
So the other piece to this is, if I remember, is this only like a first step or of a like a staged project?
Yeah, it looks like they want to scan as much as they possibly can. So they requested the full amount, and then they're gonna self-scan the rest of it once that's done.
Is there an assurance from them that they're going to get the rest of it done in some manner or some funding that they're able to do that with?
I'm not sure that there's ever an assurance from anyone about that.
I know. I'm just asking the question.
They don't call that out in the application, it looks like.
All these discussions.
Yeah, they specifically say they're going to self-scan the rest in the application. I wrote that in my notes,
Right.
but I don't know. They obviously want to do that, and they plan to do that.
Yeah, and it says no new workers' compensation claims files have been used since 2009. So this is not an ongoing issue.
Okay.
That's in their application.
Sure. So, honestly, I don't, these are questions that I wanted to ask. It's not that I'm wanting necessarily to deny the funding. It's just I really wanted to understand a little better where they were coming from. Vicky was also one of those where it wasn't necessarily wanting to deny the funding. Just wanted to have a better understanding, a little bit of where this was coming from. Because one of the things I know that I do is I look at that as we get to the line. I look at where we're at with the funding sources, with the funding of the resources compared to what may be a few of those under the line that might have maybe a higher need, or a significantly higher critical level of records that we might need to be looking at differently. So does anyone have any thoughts on that? Just as to throw a little bit of not a wrench in the works, but a little bit more discussion on where we might be able to look at this stuff.
This is Jody. I feel I'm comfortable hearing that there are going to be additional eyes helping these identified agencies moving forward. So I'm comfortable with that. They've recognized this as well.
Okay. So do we have any other concerns, questions, or thoughts on any of these 36 applications that are being recommended for funding? All right. Considering the discussion we have had with particularly the comments regarding assistance to a few of these entities a little more than what would be normally occurring. Do I hear a motion to recommend funding of these 36 applications to the Secretary of State?
Just a quick question. Did I hear somebody with the concern earlier about lesser amounts? I didn't understand that statement. Otherwise, yes, I could probably move to approve that, but I want to make sure that we don't miss something. There was a couple applications I thought mentioned that requested higher amounts. Can somebody clarify that statement?
I made the comment, this is Marnie, that City of Ocean Shores and City of Camas, they requested amounts that were over the maximum amount allowed for that type of grant. So I would just ask that you make a note that that will be corrected. That would be part of our staff working with the awardees on refining their project, but I just wanted to call that out to you.
So do you feel that needs to be in the motion, like up to the limits? Or how is that a concern that it needs to be in the motion?
Yes.
I would say so.
And does that leave $9,000 more on the table then?
That's what I was going to ask too. Yeah.
In which case you could go to 37.
Correct.
spending the 700,000 in the first place. So you've got about 18,000.
Yeah, potentially you could go to
Do you ever partially fund somebody if they're close
Yes.
to the line?
We have partially funded projects based upon what the applications contain.
And if I remember correctly, Mount Vernon's request was for partial project anyway, and they were going to get to most of it with this funding.
Yeah, so City of Mount Vernon was the next one on the list.
It's 19,500. If we were to change those two to the maximum, what does that leave for the city? What would that leave for the City of Mount Vernon? About 18,000.
It would leave about 8,000.
8,000.
About $9,000.
Okay. So do I hear a motion?
I can I can give it a shot to include all that. To
Attempt it,
adopt,
right, go for it. Give
Okay.
it an attempt.
maybe adopt the recommendations up to the approved amount of the grant and maximize the amount awarded.
To include the City of Mount Vernon.
To include, yeah, and that would be the maximize, so that to include the City of Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And the two reductions up above.
And that's the approval amount up of the grant, right? So we're not awarding above what the grant says that we can do. That was that statement. So if you need me to clarify that, I can certainly do that.
Sure.
I was thinking that the amount up to the approved grant would address that, the lesser amount with the two other agencies that requested above the grant amount instead of calling them out. So.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on the motion? The motion basically states that we will be awarding 37 grants. The amounts for the two cities will be reduced by the amounts to only up to the maximum allowed for those grant types, and will include a partial funding for the City of Mount Vernon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? I love it when we can get, so motion passes. I love it when we can get through this process quickly. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of the work that you've done for this. We haven't been able to do this for quite some time. Thank goodness we have money available for these agencies again. You know, I've worked a lot with Archives over the years on the Archives Oversight Committee for what we've been able to do for so many agencies throughout the state. And this is so important. So thank you all very much. Do we have any further comments on the grant process?
Jerry, one thing everyone should just be aware of, we did put in a supplemental request to spend the money we didn't spend last year when state agencies were asked not to spend money because there might be COVID budget cuts. Those budget cuts did not materialize, so we still have the money that we would have given out last year but did not. So that's roughly about $500,000. It still must get through the governor's budget office, the Office of Financial Management, and it must get through the governor's office approval, which he normally announces someplace early in the first half of December. Then the legislature has to approve it. So at some point next year, we may have that $500,000 additionally available. It's dedicated funds. It can't be spent for anything else by the archives. So it makes no sense not to give out the grant monies when that's what the purpose is for. But we need to get the legislative approval to do it.
I would really look forward to potentially having a second round of this for that $500,000. That would be awesome. Thank you for doing that. All righty.
And let us know how that goes, and if you need people to sign in or let legislative leaders know it's important, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah,
you appreciate that. It definitely helps.
Yeah, as we move through this, it is important that that all of us and many of us who work very closely with the legislature to be able to have that information when that starts to come forward, so that we can provide that input to the legislators for that funding. I agree with Victoria, absolutely 100%.
Mentioned that AWC, when he sent our budget letter to the governor's office, we included this issue as one of the items we'd like to see funded.
Perfect.
Right, appreciate that.
Perfect. Okay, so next item on the agenda.
Oh, other business.
Other business. So does anyone have any other business they would like to bring forth to the group? Want to remind everyone that everyone needs to be considering taking on chair of the Archives Oversight Committee, as I most likely will be stepping aside by the end of next year. Please consider. Doesn't take that much time, and it's a pretty rewarding experience to be a part of this organization and potentially be chair. I can't remember how long I've been chair. I know it's been probably at least maybe 10 years. Is that right, Steve?
Something about that, yeah.
Something like that. So be looking forward to someone wanting to step up, and that would be appreciated. Is there any other business? All right, the next meeting is to be determined. We will be looking forward to see how things go with the grants. As we hop into the legislative session, we'll see how things are going there. If we have an opportunity to have a second round, of course, we will be pulling this together. We try not to meet unless we have to. So please be aware of that. One of the things we may be looking forward as we end the session next year, maybe a late spring meeting, just to be able to have the normal updates and everything coming forward from state archives, as well as a discussion on how to hopefully move forward with a second round. Does that make sense to all of you, that possibly May of next year? All righty. Anything else? Thank you all so much. We are getting out of here really early from what the schedule, so look at all the time we're going to give back to everyone. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.